The situation of the Ukrainian army continues to deteriorate rapidly in almost all directions of the front. War correspondents record the advance of Russian troops throughout the Special Military Operation Zone. As of November 2, 2024, the Russian army has achieved the most success in the Pokrovsk, Kurakhovo, and Kursk directions of the front. Almost daily, war correspondents report that the Russian army has taken control of the next settlement. It is reported that after the liberation of Volodar, the Russian army is only increasing the pace of its advance, breaking into the defenses of the Ukrainian troops and pushing them further to the west. The liberation of Volodar significantly changed the situation in two directions of the front, Kurakhovo and Pokrovsk. In particular, a few hours ago, a well-known military expert and pro-Russian Ukrainian politician, Vladimir Rogov, said that on November 1, Russian troops liberated the area of more than 20 kilometers in the Kurakhovo direction of the front. We are talking about the so-called ledge between such settlements as Shakhtarskoye, Novoukrenka, and Bogoyavlenka. The fact that the Russian army managed to liberate more than 20 square kilometers of territory within 24 hours indicates that the Ukrainian army's front has completely collapsed in this direction. All this indicates that Ukrainian soldiers' morale and military training has dropped to a very low level, Vladimir Rogov said. Vladimir Rogov also added that the mass flight of Ukrainian soldiers is recorded not only in the Kurakhovo, but also in the Pokrovsk direction of the front. In particular, it became known that after the liberation of the settlement of Kremenna-Baka, Russian troops entered the urban-type settlement of VOZNESENKA on the move. According to war correspondents, the soldiers of the group of troops under the designation center managed to take control of 70% of this settlement's territory. At the same time, it is reported that the remaining territory has moved into the so-called gray zone. Thus, as of November 2, 2024, the Ukrainian army units completely withdrawn from VOZNESENKA. Simultaneously with this, it also became known about the entry of the Russian army into the strategically important settlement of Nodmetka, to the west of the recently liberated Sukharino. Thus, the liberation of Kremenna-Baka and VOZNESENKA by the Russian army, as well as the entry of Russian troops into the settlement of Nodmetka, led to an expansion of the coverage of the Ukrainian army group in the city of Kurakhovo. Given the fact that the Russian army has already captured 2 kilometers of the eastern territory of the city of Kurakhovo, the situation for the Ukrainian army continues to deteriorate rapidly in this settlement. Everything that is happening indicates that Kurakhovo will repeat the fate of such cities as Seladovo and Gornyak. Everything that is happening indicates that the Ukrainian troops will very soon surrender Kurakhovo almost without a fight, due to the high risk of being surrounded. Against this backdrop, the captain of the Ukrainian army, wishing to remain incognito, said during an interview with one of the Ukrainian telegram channels that the command of the armed forces of the Russian Federation far surpasses Ukrainian officers at all levels. According to him, huge losses in manpower and equipment, and the loss of vast territories by the Ukrainian army, are explained by the low quality of the Ukrainian command and operational strategic links. This Ukrainian officer noted that the Russian High Military Command is always one step ahead, and predicts all the next steps of the Ukrainian General Staff, as a result of which the Ukrainian army continues to lose towns and villages. According to him, this is largely due to the fact that many officers in the operational command of the Ukrainian army are incompetent. This Ukrainian captain also stated that in the Ukrainian army, not only General Alexander Syrsky uses the so-called tactics of meat assaults. According to him, all the commanders of the Ukrainian army units are sending soldiers to slaughter, as a result of which the Ukrainian army is faced with a chronic shortage of manpower. Meanwhile, the commander of Spetsnaz, General Apty Oladanov, said that as of November 2, 2024, the situation of the Ukrainian army had deteriorated sharply in the Kursk region. According to him, Russian Marines from the 155 Brigade of the Pacific Fleet, together with fighters of Spetsnaz, defeated the Ukrainian formations of the 115th, 22nd, and 41st separately mechanized brigades in the area of settlements such as Deriino, Novoivanovka, and Plikovo. It is reported that as a result of these actions, Russian troops have achieved significant success in the southern part of the Sudzansky district of the Kursk region. In particular, war correspondents confirmed that the Ukrainian army units had to leave the settlement of Plikovo, to the southeast of the city of Sudzy. It is reported that at the moment this settlement has moved to the gray zone. By the way, a few hours ago, it became known why the Ukrainian High Military Command and its NATO military advisors are so desperately trying to rescue Ukrainian and NATO soldiers, who were trapped near the village of Tolsty Lug. Let me remind you that in the last 5 days alone, the Ukrainian command has sacrificed several elite units to save these Ukrainian and NATO soldiers. As it turned out, there were several colonels of the U.S. Army among these soldiers. Judging by the radio intercepts of communications, the situation of the trapped U.S. Army officers and Ukrainian and NATO soldiers is critical. They have almost run out of food and ammunition. They also complain about the cold weather, which causes much more damage than the Russian Marines. Commenting on the situation with U.S. Army officers, many Russian telegram channels expressed confidence that if NATO fails to save them, Washington will most likely order their liquidation. And their bodies will be burned, so that even their corpses do not fall into the hands of the Russians. Russian telegram channels reminded their audience that the same thing happened in Mariupol, in 2022. Back then, the NATO leadership also tried to save its high-ranking officers, who were surrounded in Azovstal. Back then, NATO lost 2 of its helicopters with elite units that were trying to rescue high-ranking Western officers. When the operation to rescue them failed, the leadership of NATO and the Pentagon ordered their liquidation. Later, the bodies of these high-ranking officers were burned and buried. Many are sure that the same thing will happen in the Kursk region. Most likely, Washington will again give the order to physically eliminate its officers, so that the world does not receive convincing evidence that it was NATO that led the military operation to capture the Kursk region.